Okay, everybody, let's get ready to draw. We are doing Sure's Café Concert. It's on page 151 in your textbook if you want to get that open and you can look at it. Or you can go into Blackboard, and I have this picture of it in Blackboard, so you can open that up and you can refer to it as you go along. Or if you've printed it out, you can have, like I have, you can have the printout handy. Seurat did this at 12 and 5/8 by 9 1/4. We are not going to do it that large. This reproduction that you can print out of Blackboard is a little bit larger than that. I reduced it proportionately and came up with a 7 by 5. So we are scaling it down to a 7 by 5, but we're going to do it proportionately. So we're going to transfer it from here over to here. And I have gone ahead and found my center lines, top, bottom, left, right. So I've created these quadrants that are going to help guide me as far as the placement of all our figures. And let's take a look at the figures here. We have our singer in the middle. She's got a dark bodice. She's got what appears to be a dark hat on her head, or maybe her hair piled high. We really don't know. Seurat doesn't give us all that information. We get a little bit of an arm here. We've got the full skirt. We've got the white stage across here. And this stage on this rendition falls about maybe a little over an inch below our horizontal center line. And on this smaller version of it, I'm probably going to drop down about maybe 3/4 of an inch and lay that in. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures. We have the tall man over here. He is the most dominant of our figures. This is our secondary as far as dominance. And we see how they're balancing each other left and right. We also have a very dark down here, and that is being balanced by this negative space up here. And then our whitest whites are our singer. She's not quite in the middle. She's slightly off to the left because he's so dominant on the right. By pulling her off to the left, that's created a visual balance here. And again, the darks down here is balanced by the light up there. So that is how Seurat chose to frame it. We don't get to frame our piece. If we were drawing from real life, we would be making all these decisions as we go and how we wanted to frame it up and how we wanted to create a visual balance. But Seurat has already done all of that for us. So we're just going ahead and we're going to copy what he did today. And I'm going to keep this handy. I'll be referring to this. I also have the original, which is actually even smaller still. It's not the original, the reproduction in your book, which is even smaller still. It gives me a little bit more detail. Like I can see there's a little bit of a darker, and that almost matches her bodice, and her skirt. It looks like maybe that's a darker skirt with white in the center. Yeah, I can get a little bit more detail. So I'll be referring to both of these today. If you do not have this printed out, if you do not have your textbook, if you can't find it in Blackboard, you could always just Google Seurat Café Concert. And there's a couple of them that he did, so just look for the one that looks like this and go ahead and follow along. So we're going to start with our willow charcoal, and we're just going to very lightly go over this on the side. Don't worry too much yet about getting it into the corners. We're going to blend all of this. We'll be doing a lot of blending today. So I'm just going to try and get it somewhat even. And then I'm just taking, this is just a paper towel, and I'm just going to go ahead and blend all of that in. What I'm trying to do now is just get kind of the middle ground on the image. We're really dealing with a lot about values today. And so we're looking for the middle value. So when I look at this, here's my blackest black. She is my lightest light. Well, the stage probably here is a little bit lighter. So this back here would be my middle ground. That's about halfway between everything. So that's what I'm setting up here, is just my middle ground. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a subtractive process to start with. And I'm just going to kind of very lightly, this is my eraser. If you don't have one of these fancy erasers, you could just be using the eraser on the end of your pencil. But I'm just lightly putting in my quadrants just so I can reference back to here. And then I'm going to use this to go ahead and start lining it in. She's got her hat up here, face. So I'm just erasing this imagery out. Her skirt falls down here somewhere. It comes below that line. Bodice, skirt. The bodice kind of ends here at the center line, and then this skirt flows over on that side. We have an arm and an arm, head, hat. Okay, when I look at this, this tall man, his hat points right about to her neck. So that's going to put his hat, the brim of his hat right about here. It's coming down and around. The hat's going up. And his face here is just a little bit wider than the hat. So his face comes in just outside of the hat. His face goes all the way down to the center line, and then it starts to cut back in. Okay. His shoulder right here, it's just below the line here and cuts to about halfway here. So it's going to cut to right about there. That's his shoulder here. This guy's shoulder comes in just slightly below his, so right about here. Now I'm looking at his hat, his brim. His brim is coming along, pointing to about his cheekbone there, below the bodice, above the center line. So right about here, I'm going to say is the brim of his hat. He's got a round hat, it goes up here. This hat is a little bit fuller down here. Then his face takes a dive down to here. And then we segue into this shoulder here. Face, hat. Okay, now the stage is this nice white line that cuts through these figures here. And like I said, it's about an inch below. I have put her on the stage here, and I think I might have dropped her down a little too far. So I'm just going to use the charcoal and go ahead and smush out that white line. Well, let's put the stage in first. So the stage, I'm going to guess the stage cuts right across here. Got this white of the stage. We've got this. I'm going to put in this figure, and this figure. So this figure covers up just a part of her dress. Got the brim of his hat. He comes down and he kind of fades into the background. This other figure is just a little bit taller. He crosses the center line. I think this figure here, I'm going to go ahead and put this charcoal back in. I don't like that, what I did with that figure. So I'm going to, by putting more charcoal in, I'm actually getting rid of him. And I'm going to move him over a little bit closer, because this figure here, he goes above this center line, the horizontal line, crosses over. He touches all four quadrants with his hat. So I'm going to put him in here. I'm going to put the other guy in here. I think this guy's face is too fat. So I'm going to erase that. Throw some more charcoal in there. I think I went too far with both his hat and his face, because I don't have room for this other head here. I'll bring it down here. Okay, and now add a little more charcoal. I have room for this head. It's coming down into here. This head over here, we're seeing just, it's coming in and cutting off the stage. We have a little bit of a shoulder and we come back in here. All right, so that's pretty rough. That's all we need for now. Now we're gonna go back to our charcoal, and I'm gonna start drawing this in. Okay, and I'm going to use my finger to blend. While I'm blending, I'm getting rid of my sharp black lines because Seurat really doesn't have any sharp lines here. It's all very soft. And I'm also pushing charcoal into those white lines that I created. He's got a lighter area here. He's got a lighter area along the cheek. He lightens up down here. Along the brim of all the hats, it's a little bit lighter, and along here it's a little bit lighter. We imagine that the stage lights are hitting there and causing, and they're not much lighter, but here we're seeing maybe the stage lights go across the cheek. They're all pretty dark, but you can see they all have just a little bit of a halo of light that's hitting their hats. So we'll keep that in mind as we're going here. It's still this halo of light. It's still darker than our median ground. So I'm going to go ahead and put charcoal in there, but you're going to see later, I'm going to put even darker charcoal in. It's going to start blending, and so we'll get, the darker charcoal is going to make that look lighter. But right now, I'm just getting in a little bit darker tones in here. We want to work our imagery up evenly, because we don't want to get this all set and do a ton of detail on this only to find out it's not working and have to go in and erase the whole thing. Got this other head here. This head is very dark right along this line. That kind of helps to define that line there. Just to make sure my spacing is right, I'm going to go over and work on this guy right now. So just fill this in and then blend it, soften it. I'm gonna come back and do more work with the charcoal to make it darker later on. I know you can't see that hat line in Seurat's rendition, but it just sometimes helps for me to complete a line, to just kind of get a handle on what's going on. So where the shoulder comes across here, I'm gonna go ahead and just gently line this out. I want to keep this a really light line on these shoulders because this creates a really interesting effect. So what I'm looking at is the light line here and the light line there. So I'm just doing that to tell myself to hold out on those, so don't fill those in too much. I'll go in and darken and soften all of this. But I'm going to want to leave that fairly light. So, like I said, I'm just going to go ahead, because what we want to do is we're going to darken up what's on the other side of that shoulder. And that's what's going to make the shoulder, we're going to get the lightness of that shoulder on there. It's because of the darkness on either side of it. Okay, here we have our stage coming across here. We've got this figure here. These figures are very fuzzy. Seurat is not giving a lot of information on these figures. There's a little charcoal in there. Big round hat. This one, we've got a little bit of shadow that's being cast here. And I want to go ahead and set up his shoulder. So I'm going to darken on this side of the shoulder and blend. We don't have, Surratt didn't give us a nice white hard line. That's why I just ran my finger over that and softened that line a little bit. Because there's nothing has a hard edge to it. Everything is very soft and implied, very fuzzy edges. And there's a little bit of dark coming across here. We go dark in here. Go ahead and set this up. Okay, it's time to put in my Singer. I need to come back and do more work on these, but I'm gonna put in my Singer. So I'm switching over to my kneaded eraser just because it picks up a lot of color very quickly. And so I'm going to use that. Go back and really get the white, the lights of this stage coming through here, the white of her gown. Her face up here, her arms. Okay, so she's got this dark bodice, which I'm going to go ahead and set in. And there's something on her head. Don't know if it's a hat or if it's her hair. We're going to go ahead and set that in. Soften everything because he doesn't go really dark with any of this. I'm going to give her just a suggestion of an arm here, skirt coming down here. He has a little bit of dark coming on the skirt on both sides. I'm going to soften that line. Oops, the other arm is over here. We don't really see the whole arm. We don't see everything. It's just a kind of a suggestion. All right, now looking at this, I'm not happy with this. I'm good for now. I'm gonna walk away from the Singer for a minute. I'm gonna go back and I'm really going to explore these figures in shadow. So now I'm gonna lay in here we have really dense velvety black, a little bit here, a lot down here. The backs of these heads are very black, all in here, leaving it lighter on the rims, where the stage lights are bathing the front of the figures, but we don't see that. We're just seeing the little bit of light that's creeping around on the back side, just a little bit of light that's brushing across their shoulders. So to really push that now I'm going to lay in these really beautiful inky blacks, and that's going to help our figures to kind of pop. There's a little lightness in this corner. Don't know what Surratt was doing with that, but I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. Comes down here. This is all blacks, very dark. So when I go to blend this, I'm going to do it softly. I don't want to pick this color back up. I just want to move it around and soften it. Pull it down a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna keep adding and softening this black until I get that kind of really velvety feel that I want. This figure here is very black in here. That sets this up so we can see the lightness of that. And they just kind of meld into the background. This one, we can't hardly even see what's going on with him. He's very indistinct. And the back side of these heads. Again, I'm just putting on the really darkest darks and then blending, because everything in this Seurat piece is just very soft. Okay, I'm going to throw more charcoal in here to really show off where these figures start, and also to kind of just inky up this background here. And here, coming this way, Seurat gives us these really dark darks leading in here to set up that shoulder area. And they go even darker. Really get that inky blackness. And over here, same thing. Go ahead and lay in those darks. And the back of this figure's head. Lay it in, soften it, blend it. Leave the edges just a little bit lighter. Whoops, I took too much off. Go back in and put it back. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of dark in here. I want to feel her settle into that stage. And I also want to feel the edge of that stage. Okay. Got a little bit going on in the background here, like we maybe are seeing a little bit of curtains. But it's very soft. So I'm going to put it in and I'm going to take it right back out. Okay. I think that's about it. Really going to make her get the whites here. Okay, taking one last look. There's a little bit more curtain action, but I don't know that I'm going to go in there and keep mucking up this. I have to say, oh, you know what? I don't like this neck area. It's a little bit too distinct. He doesn't really give us a neck. We kind of don't really know where this face comes in because it's so shadowed in here. I'm going to throw some shadow back in there. All right. It's not a perfect rendition, but it is good enough. I am not unhappy with that. Dirty. Clean up. And now, let's take this tape off. We get such beautiful edges when we use this tape. So I hope you taped off your edges. I think you'll be happy you did. Look at that little bit there. If I were to frame this, which I'm not going to do, but if I were to frame this, I would have these nice clean margins. So I'm picking up a little bit of paper there. I'm going to come back the other way. See if I can avoid that. It would give me a nice white margin, so I wouldn't have to set the frame right against my image. I could set my frame back here a little bit and get a white margin all the way around, which I think really sets the picture off beautifully. Okay, little paper tear here. That's okay. Okay, there we go. Café Concert by Seurat.